Start recording. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Ethan DeWard. I'm a senior here at Ferris. So I'm going to be breaking down how do we control these lights?
You want this one dimmer?
Yeah. Feels like I'm under a spotlight. I know. I've used it before, but the way they set it up is so weird. There we go. Okay. So show of hands, how many of you know of the Warcraft art competition? All right. 2, 3, 4. Couple of you. So this was my submission for the Warcraft art competition. It was a character of my own creation. His name's Bargain. And I'm going to go into a little bit of how I made it. So since some of you don't know what the Warcraft art competition is, I'll break it down for you. Here's kind of a rough outline of what I'm going to go over. A lot of stuff here today. Just kind of breaking down every single step of the process that I did. And if you have any desire to do it, this will sort of be like a guide on how I was able to place in the competition. And then more of the stuff breaking it down. So what exactly is the Warcraft competition? It's an annual competition hosted by Blizzard. People who made World of Warcraft, Overwatch, all that stuff. Starts in October and goes to January. There's 4 categories: environment, character, VFX, and animations. And you win prizes, mentorship, and especially recognition, which I think is one of the more important things there. Especially being in a video game field, it's very competitive. So having that recognition is hugely important. So here's some of the prizes you'll win. A Wacom tablet, a very nice Wacom tablet. Like I think I checked, it's like $2,000. So that's kind of nice. But again, I think the more important thing here is the recognition. You want a good job in the industry, so doing this will help you get recognized, especially since you're getting thrown to a huge mass of people there. And then some other stuff. I have yet to receive mine. I came in second place in the competition, so I don't know exactly what. Thank you. I don't know what exactly I'm going to be getting. I'm hoping I get that really nice tablet, but that wasn't exactly what I was going for, so if I don't get it, you win some, you lose some. So why specifically should you do it? Many previous winners have ended up becoming senior artists at Blizzard. So here are some specific examples I have. Specifically, Kevin Young. I remember you helped him with the environment stuff. He ended up becoming a senior 3D dungeon artist at Blizzard. So he was a previous DGD student, and he did the competition and ended up coming in runner-up too, and he ended up getting a huge job at Blizzard. So, and here's some of the other ones that have ended up becoming senior artists at Blizzard, specifically character artists and just regular 3D artists. It showcases, if you do it, it showcases the fact that you have the ability to match a specific art style. And placing in a competition gets you a huge notice by recruiters. One of the things they look for specifically is the fact that you have the ability to do what you say you can do. So like, I can make characters. Okay, can you show me how you do it? Yeah, here's a competition I placed in, so I can do it. And of course, you get bragging rights. You can tell people, hey, yeah, I won in a competition. I mean, I didn't win, came in second place. I have to specify that. It's kind of weird though. I'm like, I won, but I didn't win, kind of thing. So here are the requirements they give you as per Blizzard. Submissions should attempt to match the art style used for World of Warcraft, creating a non-player character with some sort of clothing or armor and other trappings as the entrant sees fit. Submissions should utilize no more than 6,000 polygons with one 1024 by 1024 texture for the finished character. That's it. That's all you get. Those are the specifications that you have to meet. So how exactly do you go about making a character with such like little guide for how to make it? So how exactly do you come up with the idea? I've noticed in specific winners of previous years, they tend to be very animal focused. As you can see here, these are all winners of previous years. They're all of them are animal focused. I think there was only one that won. That was the first year, and it was like an orc. So making an animal focused character, specifically mounts tend to win big, as well as so I've noticed some of like making your own race tends to do really well. So like this person made an elephant type race, and this person made a hairless cat type race. So I kind of wanted to take it on my own spin and make an alligator race, since that's something that wasn't already in Blizzard. And don't be completely set in an idea. Let it change as you work through it. There were many instances where I wanted it to go a different direction, and then it ended up switching and changing as I was working on it. And come up with a unique backstory for it. That tends to, I think, help you design the character. As you come up with ideas for how to make it and making it fit into that backstory, and also putting it on your Artstation with a description of what it is, I think will help you stand out. And then do your research. I actually never ended up playing World of Warcraft. But I did a lot of research on specific enemies and stuff in the game. So there's, for instance, there's the, on the far left there is what's known as the Sauroch. And then Crocolisk is a type of enemy in the game. And then I found this image. It's from Hearthstone. It's of a walrus soup trader. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to make something, make him a soup trader. So the original idea was having an alligator-themed trader character. So there's specific elements I knew I wanted to have. I knew I wanted him, obviously, to be a big alligator character. And then I kind of wanted him to be this, like, big... You know, he's got a big tummy, and he would be that sort of like chunky, could still kick your ass kind of design. So like he's a big guy, but he's still muscular and stuff like that. And then there were specific ways in which I made it fit into there, like taking inspiration from there, and then going further into some of my actual inspiration. And one thing I want to mention. A lot of this is not like a necessary through line process. Like I didn't go through each of these steps individually. Like there are some points where you have to do like your high poly and then your low poly and then your texturing and then, but like for instance, I didn't come up with the clothing in the concept at all. I kind of worked with clothing as I went through the whole process. So for instance, you can see here in some of my inspirations, you'll find inspiration in some of the weirdest places. But some of the stuff like this armor here, I just found it on Pinterest and I was like, I like that design. So I'm just going to like take it and use it. So I did. And if you take different places, if you just copy something straight up, people will notice. But if you steal from different places, nobody will notice. So yeah, there's a lot of different inspiration, a lot of stuff on Pinterest. There's like that gator over there. I have a lot of different references of anthropomorphic gators that I used. And then one of the weirdest inspirations that I got was on that far left in the middle there. There was a amusement park that I went to that had an alligator themed roller coaster, and then they had this cool pattern of like triangles and stuff that looked like gator teeth, and it was spirals. It's the pattern basically you'll see in the top and bottom there. I was like, that's really cool. I'm going to incorporate that into my design. So if you look closely, you can see on his arm there, he has like a tattoo of that. And I really like that design, so I included it there. And then moving on to concepting, I don't have that strong of a grasp of 2D art. So this was more or less just kind of like me figuring out how I wanted to do stuff. If you do end up doing, especially the character, they do like to see 2D art. That's something I'll talk about later on, of feedback I got, because I did end up getting the mentorship. So like 2D art is one of the big things they look for. I didn't include a 2D concept in mine, and I think it hurt my overall piece. I think it would have turned out better and potentially won if I included a concept. But I did do some rough sketches, just kind of figuring out. Here you can see the design. I was kind of figuring out what exactly I wanted. So I made it more aligned to the Sauroch, where they're more skinny. And I didn't like that, so I kept going and refining. And then I did a turnaround in Photoshop, just kind of figuring out the overall proportions. I knew I wanted like big forearms. That was pretty typical in some of the designs I found for like big gator characters. And stuff that like, especially with silhouette, you want to make sure your character is in line with the shape language of Blizzard. They have very, I mean, if you've seen Blizzard's designs, they have very clear silhouettes. So like when you see the character from far away, you're instantly able to recognize them, and that's something huge with especially Blizzard stuff. Is if your silhouette doesn't work, your character won't work. So make sure your silhouette is unique and interesting in a way that will stand out. So this is more my wheelhouse, sculpting. I spent a lot of time. This is where I spent the most amount of time, was in sculpting. So I started off, of course, use ZBrush. That's the industry standard. Really nice. Got to use it. But I started out blocking out the form with the insert mesh brush, specifically spheres, and like blocking out the muscle shapes based on that sort of simplified anatomy thing there. And the reason I did that is I feel like it saves me time having to, like pull everything out from just like a tube of clay, and then trying to make it work. So having this way of like knowing where specific muscle forms are and specific other forms of like bony landmarks and stuff like that it helps you like sort of figure out where you want stuff. And I use the this turnaround to sort of get a grasp of where specific things were. So I use this in the planes, like I put them on planes in the reference planes in ZBrush, and then matched this anatomy stuff to it. Of course, it didn't match up one-to-one because he's got digitigrade legs and dinosaur legs. I just used different dinosaurs and other stuff like that to figure out how to make those. And I just found references on Pinterest for that. And then moving on to the clothing and armor, there's a specific tutorial by... There's a lot of stuff in here, and I'm going to mention a couple other tutorials that I looked through while I was working on this that definitely helped me. Okay. It's by Armored Colony, it looks like. And this just goes into a process of going through and using references, obviously, and then you would like mask out certain sections you want on your model. If you're familiar with ZBrush, you probably should know the masking tools. You mask out a specific feature, you use the extract brush, and that gives you a nice shape to work with. Z-remesh it, and then use like the move tools and the Z-modeler brush to sort of get the topology in a more workable state. And then you can use the what's the tool? Dynamic subdivision, and you can add thickness to it. That's what I specifically use for some of the armor pieces. But if there's specifically like a very organic piece, kind of like this, you can mask out with poly paint where you want specific edges to be, and then you do group by poly paint, which is a feature kind of hidden in the plugins. I think it's the plugins tab in ZBrush. But that gives you like nice poly groups to work with, and then you can do in the deformation tab, which should be on the right. Or I guess this way because my left is your right. You'll find specific areas. You'll find a specific thing that says polish by groups, and that gives you hard edges in between your groups, and that'll help like refine specific shapes that you're looking for in that. And I use that like pretty much the entire process for the clothing. And then moving on, again, I was talking about how I was trying to figure out kind of thing, specific like shapes and whatnot, and how it kind of changed as I went along. So here's an example of specific things. Like I knew I wanted those cross-section lines on on him. Like that was a specific detail I wanted. And I couldn't figure out if I wanted I wanted vertical lines or just horizontal lines. That's kind of a thing where like look at other designs that people have made of like alligator characters, but also look at the actual reference of, for example, an alligator, and you'll find certain examples of what you would want. Like, because they have that sort of like V-shaped stuff on their scales on their stomach. So that's sort of a design that sort of ties it into the alligator and makes it more clear. Hey, this is an alligator. And then other designs I knew I wanted scales, like hard plates on him, specifically on the arm, because there was a lot of character designs that I saw. I think if I go back all the way, this one on the top or the bottom left there has like hard plates on his arms. And that was a huge reference. I was like, yeah, I really like that design, so I'm going to try and incorporate it into mine. So I messed around with different subtools, making all different shapes, kind of having it go all the way up the arm in different ways. The one on the top there is like a more scaly kind of thing, and this one's more like hard armor plates. And then I ended up going with just kind of up to the forearm and then having a little bit of shoulder detail there. And then one thing I recommend as you continue detailing, keep things as separate subtools. I I have the meme there, 500 subtools, because there were definitely a lot of different subtools. Like each of those rivets there are different subtools, but I did like 3 different designs as per Brian's recommendation to save me the headache. But I detailed like 3 different ones and then duplicated them throughout the piece on where I wanted rivets. And then I did and went through and added like different stuff. Like I used the clay buildup brush to get like it's hard to see, but there's a little bit of like scaling detail, and that was me just going through with the clay buildup brush and just like brushing a little bit, smoothing it out, brushing a little bit, smoothing it out, and it gave that like square scale-like appearance. And anywhere you use scale, so I did that. Some other things, again, you want to pay attention to the silhouette again while you're making it. So specific things like I gave him eyebrow piercings to add to that sort of asymmetricalness of this character. I knew I was gonna mirror the UVs. So specific elements like the left side is more detailed because I would bake the left side and then it would get mirrored to the right. So I didn't spend as much time on the right detailing, but like specific parts like the clothing that weren't going to be mirrored, I spent more time on and making sure they were asymmetrical so it would sort of break up that silhouette. Again, silhouette is important. You want to have it partially where, again, that asymmetricalness breaks up the silhouette and sort of adds to it. And then another thing is the Ore Brush Pack by Michael Vicenti, I think is how you pronounce it. But that's sort of your go-to for especially this Blizzard art style. I think he was a Blizzard artist at one point, and he did this sort of process where you make the high poly really detailed, and then you bake down the details and work from that, instead of going through and hand painting each detail. And I use that quite heavily on this character. One thing, all saying all this stuff of how to do details, don't focus too much. I spent way too much time. Like the high poly took me the most amount of time, and a lot of the details I didn't end up using. So specifically, I added like lines here. I used the damn standard brush to add like lines and creases into the armor plates, and I did that for pretty much each individual armor plate. And then when I baked it down and like because I worked in 4K for the texture sizes, and then I shrunk it down to 1K as per the requirements, and then all that detail disappeared. So don't focus too much on like super specific details like that because it'll just get lost when you bake it down. So just kind of focus on the main, like the scales did end up baking down and stuff, and that helped me, but other details did not end up. So like super fine details, don't worry about. And then moving on to retopology. Again, you want to keep most things separate. I use 3ds Max for it. So, I mean, that's what we're taught, so that's what I used. There's specific retopology tools within there. Again, you want to decimate your high poly lower than normal when working on retopology. There's the decimation feature. I ended up combining all the objects into one, just using the merge visible tool in ZBrush because I had issues decimating. There's like a decimate each subtool individually. That ended up not working for me, so I just combined everything, decimated that down so it was all within a range that I could work with, and then brought it in, and then renamed all the subtools. It sucked, but, you know, it saved me. I don't think it saved me any time, to be honest. But, I don't know. It's just how I ended up working, and I think, yeah. where am I going here? Anyways, moving on from that. Make sure when you're doing the remodeling process, again, I have here a whole bunch of the different subtools I use for the specific thing. So I think in total there's 52 separate objects. And again, like when I baked it, or when I decimated it down, I decimated it all as one object and then used the element tool in 3ds Max and detached them. But specific elements like the armor plating, I just kept it all as one object because that's what I baked down for like the body specifically. But other stuff like the teeth, the belts, the apron there, all that stuff, all the armor pieces are like each separate individual pieces that I modeled from. So like again, you had the 500 subtools, and now you're down to 52 separate objects. So certain stuff will be baked down onto just a smaller object. Again, I'm going to keep iterating this. The silhouette, make sure you're focusing on the silhouette. And keeping also, they're looking for animation loops. So if you look around the face here, you can see specific loops around his mouth, around his neck, around his arms, around his fingers, around his toes, around his feet. Specific stuff that's like going to deform. You'll see when I do rigging later why it helped. So like, even if you don't plan on rigging, you still have to pay attention to animation loops because you have to imagine when you're making a character, the character process involves rigging, so you want to make sure you build it for that, even if you don't plan on doing it, because it's something they look for. Then specific reduction techniques, as per help with Brian. You want to focus again mainly on the silhouette. Also use triangles. If anyone tells you that triangles are bad, punch them in the face because they're perfectly acceptable. Yeah, triangles are great. I mean, the only place you don't want to use them is if you're using subdivision, but this, of course, is a non-subdivision workflow. So, yeah, focus. I'm going to pull up my Sketchfab thing here. But yeah, don't try to make everything without triangles because you're just going to make it way harder for yourself for no point. So there are specific techniques I did here for like the belt. Here on his stomach, there's triangles where it, I'm just going to use my mouse, where it like sort of comes in to give that silhouette shape, and then branches off into a triangle, so it's just the couple of polygons there. And then other places, again here on his belt, or on his apron, there are the belts on there that connect into a triangle where you're not going to see that because it's connected to the thing. So like, it's specifically important in areas where you want to add that like curved silhouette, but like in the actual inside of the circle, you don't need that much detail. I was messing around with it being in here, and it took away too much detail, so I didn't go with that. Oh, again on the armor piece here, there's triangle here. Let me see where other places I put it. I know on the on these the belt buckle thing here, I put triangles here too. And that's again because you're not really going to see the inside of that, so there's no reason to put too much detail in there. And like doing it on one object won't reduce the try count all that much, but when you do it throughout the entire model, it'll save you pretty much put you in range to be within the polygon budget. What other things did I do? Yeah, again, just making sure to keep loops in mind. So like here, that's where it would bend. So think about where specific things are going to deform and add more topology there for when it does deform. So you can keep that silhouette without it breaking and looking weird. Oh, other things I was going to mention. The back of these rings don't exist. So basically where it goes to out here, it's only half the ring. I modeled it with the full ring, but then I just deleted the sides that you wouldn't see. Then going back here, moving on to unwrapping. This took a lot of time and was very tedious, but I think is a huge showcase of the technical ability that I had. So I used 3D Coat to unwrap, and then I also planned on mirroring the UVs. So the way that works in 3D Coat is you have to make sure your model is perfectly symmetrical, or at least it has the same topology on each side. So then, like for the hands, for instance, I don't know if that's the back of the hand or front of the hand. It doesn't really matter. But you would unwrap it, and then you would use Control Z or Control C, and then Control V on the thing you want it to mirror to, and it'll lay it on top. And that's important for saving space. That's important. They want to see, especially with 1024 by 1024, you're working with a really, really small texture size, especially for like modern games. A lot of them use like 4K now for just one specific aspect of the character. So you're working with a very small thing. And it really teaches you this whole thing. Again, why should you do it? It teaches you a lot of stuff that you don't really learn in class, specifically optimization. So like how to optimize a UV, how to optimize your model, and specific techniques like that I think was like a huge lesson that like couldn't really be covered in class because it's super technical and people would fall asleep. So learning it in here and sort of like a trial by fire really helps you learn there. And then other techniques I also made, as you can see here, certain aspects like this is his leg. It's straight, and that's to help save space. If you have straight lines, it'll help you cram everything closer in together. Another thing, there's like different belts and stuff. Like these are the belts on his chest. One thing I would try to avoid if I moving forward if I did it again, certain stuff I did mirror that I wish I didn't because specifically on the shoulder pad on his left side there, up on the, I wonder if I can use my mouse, this thing here, I mirrored it from front to back, and that caused some stretching in the back because they have the same topology, but it's a little bit different on the front and the back, so it caused some stretching. It's not too noticeable, but I mean, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I'm going to notice that. And yeah, stuff like that you got to pay attention to. And then moving on to texturing, this is probably the most important step of the process, at least in my opinion, just because that's the one thing that they really hounded on me for in the when they gave me feedback on it in the mentorships thing. They were like, your textures are what need the most work. So, but the way I did it is I baked it down. Again, you can see half the model is missing. And also I mirrored these pieces. These armor pieces were mirrored to the back. Again, that is something I might have done differently if I did it again, just because, yes, it was the same topology, but it was different, so it caused some stretching on the back. But certain things like teeth, I mirrored, and that was fine. I mirrored the whole body, and that turned out great. So I would advise something like that, especially if you have a character who's pretty much symmetrical in certain areas. There's no point in not mirroring, especially with such a low texture size. It saves you a lot of space, but there's, of course, some things I didn't mirror, like different armor pieces and the apron, because you would see it fully across. But think about it, like if you're only going to see it from one angle, there's no point in not mirroring it. Also, like the armor plates on his back weren't mirrored because you're going to see that in its full glory. So, and that can break up the texture, like, so you don't see it, that it's mirrored. Like, you can't tell that it's mirrored. But this is just base color in Substance Painter. I use Substance Painter to bake it. And then there's a specific technique that I followed. I'll show the tutorial in the next slide, by this guy called Abe Lel3 Leal. I don't know. I'm going to give you guys the access to this slideshow if you want it, so you can find that specific tutorials. The specific tutorials that I used that helped me in figuring out certain aspects of the character creation. So yeah, they used a light generator thing within Substance Painter to get that sort of the baked lighting look. Um, and then you'd bring that into 3D Coat. That's the specific software that I asked the Blizzard senior character artist what software they use, and he said 3D Coat. He it was funny because he talked to me and he was like that he just paints directly onto the model, like he doesn't bake anything down. And I was like, I couldn't imagine doing that. Um, some people are better, especially if you're better at 2D art. I think it's going to be easier for you. But I like working with the baked. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? The baked workflow, because it saves me a lot of time in trying to figuring out specific details. Yeah, so it's an hour and 30 minutes long, but it gives you a lot of details on how to actually go about making something hand painted without having to hand paint every detail. He goes in and again uses that sort of light generator thing in Substance Painter, and then brings that into 3D Coat as like a default, like a standard blend map that he works off from. I think he actually uses it as like a blend layer on top. I can't remember exactly how he did it. It's been a while since I checked this out, and I'll have to go through the techniques again. But it's pretty cool, and it saves you a lot of time, and you sort of work in layers. So like as you can see here on the right, it's got like mid-value shadows, color base. You basically build on top of everything and sort of add that hand-painted detail in layers, so you can go back and adjust specific layers and whatnot. And I think it saves you the time of having to try to go in and mess with all the details individually or like as a whole. Another thing I would recommend, I don't think my metals look that good in this. So specifically look at like different techniques for how to hand paint specific metals and how light would hit them. And you also want to keep in mind, one thing I actually got that was a positive for my texture is you want to think about the way light hits the object when you're painting it. So he said like a front light that I have on my character is a good way of doing that. So you will think about light hitting it here. It would be darker here, darker underneath his arms and stuff, and specific ways to sell that. The one thing you want about characters is color and making it pop. So I originally had him pretty dull, and then I tossed it over to Brian, and he was like, "Hey, increase the contrast and saturation." So I did, and it looks way better. And then use references of like other enemies and other stuff in Warcraft. Add more color than you think, because I started off really subtly. With really like subtle colors, really deep greens and stuff like that. And then I think that was one of the things that I improved as I went on. Also, subtlety is not the Warcraft way. They work in pretty like exaggerated features and colors. So having that very bright poppy colors is going to look a lot better, especially in modern WoW. I think maybe previously in like older versions of World of Warcraft, they had more of that darker tone, but now they definitely have very poppy colors, so that's what they're looking for. Also, if you're working in 3D Coat, use the 2 key. Press that, because otherwise your model is going to look weird. Your colors are not going to look right. They're specifically looking for, and that's something I'll talk about when I talk about rendering. They want just a flat color look, so your textures will showcase more of themselves. Because they're specifically looking... Again, that was the one thing I got the most feedback on was your textures. They want to see how your textures stand alone. And so you have to look at it with the 2 key to see if things are working, because if you can use the normal maps as reference when you're painting, but you have to keep looking at the base color to make sure that's working, because that's the only thing you're working with. So yeah. Or the diffuse, I guess, is another word for it. And then exaggerate certain details. So like that's another piece of feedback I got. Um, was like, I mean, the scales. You can notice the scales, I think definitely, but there's certain ways I could have enhanced it even more. And then, yeah, I'll talk about more when I talk about the feedback that I got. Moving on to rigging. Don't rig. um, unless you plan on animating it. I didn't end up animating it because I ran out of time. I used like the last week before I submitted it to rig. Um, I mean, it was a nice exercise, but I don't think it really added much to my overall. I mean, I think it's cool that my piece is rigged and now I can pose it whatever way I want. But I don't think it really helped in terms of getting me to place in the competition. But what I used was the Advanced Skeleton plugin in Maya. And then there's a specific tutorial by, I think her name is MyCG and she goes in depth in how to rig with that. There is an auto face rigging feature, which I ended up using on my capstone and other projects I used before. But that was one of those things that I couldn't use here because his face is such a weird shape. So I had to go in and do a manual face rig. If you look on the bottom left there, it's really hard to see. But he's got all the bones you would need for a face rig. So like specifically bones around the eyelids, bones in the eyebrows, bones in the lower lid, bones in the cheek. There's like a bone here for the mouth crease, bone in the jaw for the jaw moving. I didn't actually add bones in his lips because he doesn't really have lips. So, and I didn't really expect to have him do what's the word? Lip syncing. So he's not a character that would talk like that. And I don't even really I think they have a little bit of lip syncing in World of Warcraft, but nothing like too great, especially with one of these characters who's supposed to be a background non-player character. He probably wouldn't have any hyper detailed lip syncing. So yeah. Moving on. Posing. That's specifically one of those big things that'll show off your character. Again, if you rig, it'll make posing a lot easier, so you can do a lot of different poses, but also you're spending a lot of time rigging and not posing your character. And also, again, I would suggest instead of rigging, just focusing a lot more on making your textures look nice, and then going into like specifically, I know ZBrush has the feature where you can what's the feature called? There's like a pose feature in there, so where you can like use the masking tools in ZBrush and then pose it that way. I would recommend doing that if you don't plan on rigging. Another way you could probably sell your character, but again, I think you want to focus more on textures because that's what's going to sell it. You can probably, it would be really cool to showcase that you can animate too. So animating your character and doing other things might help sell your character a little more. Then moving on to rendering. I put him in Unreal Engine 5 just to showcase that, hey, I can put him in Engine and I can do all the stuff in Engine and make him work in Engine. So I brought him into Unreal, and then I have a ray tracing computer, so use ray tracing if you can. It makes your lights look way better and saves you the time of having to actually think about the way lights are hitting. Anyway, it does it real time. That's all that matters. You don't have to worry about like, oh, I got to move this light and then render it. No, it doesn't look right. So then I got to move it here and then render it. And no, it doesn't look right. So you basically just adjust it real time. And then you want to use the movie render queue if you plan on doing it in Unreal. And that's just rendering stuff in Unreal. Really nice. Use it if you can. Showcases you can put stuff in Engine. And also it basically just makes it look nice without having to do too much effort. But specific feedback I got, he was like, one of the things that I think hurt my character a little bit were the fact that I rendered it with lighting, because it kind of like took away a little bit from the textures. It added color where there wasn't really supposed to be color. As you can see, I did like the typical 3-point lighting. Some of the feedback I got was, if you use lights, use like a main point light, so like just right in the front, lighting up the whole character, and then like a backlight to sort of emphasize the silhouette. Don't use really any more than that if you plan on lighting it, because otherwise it'll take away and like add color again when there's not really supposed to be any color. And then showcasing your character. This is the thing you're gonna send to Blizzard. They only ever ask for one image and then like your Artstation link. And you can put more stuff on your Artstation, like I can show you after this. What specifically I put on my Artstation, I'll actually do that now. I gotta pull it up here though. Hey, it's me. But yeah, I have the whole thing. I'm gonna move this. Turn off. Turn off. Turn off. That's whatever. Yeah, so here's what I put on my Artstation. I put the Sketchfab. I uploaded it to Sketchfab. If you aren't uploading your stuff to Sketchfab, please do, because then the people can see it in 3D. But yeah, here's some. I did some of the other poses. Like there's poses that didn't show up in the final, the actual final thing in the final showcase. But I think other stuff like this can help sell your character more and what your character is. I also did. This is what I'll talk about in a little bit. Yeah. So again, it's important that you put pretty much everything you want to showcase. So like, obviously put your name so people know who you are when they post it. They're going to put your name on the thing, but they're going to share this in multiple places. And if people share it around, you're going to want your name in there. And I have a link to my Artstation in there. You also want to put your wireframe and your diffuse texture so they can look at your unwrap and then how you modeled it is an important thing that they want to see there specifically so they know you're good with your technical aspects. And then obviously have cool poses that'll show off your character doing dynamic things. So like I have the face and an angry pose, and then I have them doing like the pouring the salt into the soup pot that I made, and that was a pose recommended by Brian. And then again, yeah, you want to show off as much as your character as possible. Show your character first, front and center, and then go into the more technical aspects more on the side. And then other tips. Oh, I don't know why it has that. Other tips. Number one thing, take care of yourself. This is just in general of making good art. You can't make good art if you don't take care of yourself. So touch grass, please. Go outside. Don't stay inside and work on this the entire time. Take breaks. You're probably going to be doing this over the course of the winter break, because that's when it is, and that's what I did. My family went on vacation for that, and I took that time I still worked on it a little bit, maybe like an hour every once in a while, but I did take that time to, let myself have a break. So don't try to push yourself to work super heavily on this. Eat well and sleep well. There are a lot of times when I was working on this where I just kind of like didn't have the motivation to work on it. So I was just like, okay, I'm not going to enjoy my time that I'm working on this. So I just like went outside and took a walk, and that, helped me bring my mind back to a place where I'm like, okay, I can work on this. Give yourself enough time. Start early. Because if you're going to be like, I'm going to do this in January, it's not going to turn out well. Yeah, I took most of the time in December working on, I think November and December, and working on the high poly, and then like in the last few, or like later in December and then into January, I worked on like retopology and texturing, and then the rigging and stuff. Like in the last week I did rigging, and that was not fun because I spent like that entire week rigging and posing and whatnot. I mean, it was fun, but obviously keep your try to plan if you can, but of course things will change, so plan for that, I guess. Yeah, and also get help. Talk to your professors. Throughout the entire step of the process, I worked with Brian to get specific feedback. He's really good with his feedback. Thank you, Brian. He's also worked with other students before and giving them feedback, so he knows the process. He knows what they're looking for. And now he'll have the help of a character artist. Because, like, did you help Quinn with the VFX stuff? Yeah, so the only one you haven't done is animation.
Correct.
Right.
so we need to step up.
Yeah, someone needs to be an animator and do the animation thing. So we have um, all the Ferris represent has in the Warcraft thing. Um, and even talk to Blizzard artists or artists outside of the Ferris sphere, because they're probably especially Blizzard artists. I'm sure a lot of them would be able to give you feedback. I actually don't know if that would be considered cheating. I don't know, because you're getting direct help from them. I don't know. I would ask them at the very least, just get feedback from them if they're willing to help. They could give you some very clear feedback. Get help and feedback from friends and family, even if it's just like some support while you're working. This is a drawing from my girlfriend who helped me come up with the whole idea of like uh, sort of the silhouette of what we wanted for him, and she came up with the idea of the soup ladle being a mace that was like broken in half. And then my brother came up with the name Bargain. He was just giving me ideas for names and stuff, and then one of them was Bargain, and I was like, I really like that, so I'm going to use it. And then I even like gave him a credit in the Artstation link of like, hey, my brother came up with the name, and then huge thanks to all the people that helped me make it. And then try to practice if you can. So this was my final for the VFX assignment, and this is where I was testing out. I did this in November, October, November-ish, near the end of the fall semester. But I had never really done hand-painted stuff before, so this was my practice, especially with metal, because I think metal is one of the harder things to get right. The three main things that Brian recommends is you want to learn how to know metal, stone, and wood, specifically. So that's what I did here is I practiced with wood and metal because those were the two ones that I thought I would struggle the most with. Stone can be hard, but I feel like it's definitely the easiest because you just kind of add stuff to the edges. But metal is really hard, so I wanted to practice that. And that was where I familiarized myself with that tutorial that I shared later, that I shared earlier, where the guy was doing the baking process. This is where I tried it out for the first time, failed a lot of times, and then just kept iterating on it and figuring out. And like how I found the tutorial was pretty funny because I kept trying to find different tutorials. So they're like, yeah, just go in, paint all the details by hand, and then you'll have it. It's like, I can't do that. So I found that other tutorial, and then with the help of some of the other tutorials, figured out how you paint metal, and then I did that. Saved me a lot of time trying to figure out that process later on when making the character. So practice if you can. If you can't practice on the character, fail quickly and fail often, as they say. And then, did people like the character? Here's the official feedback I got when I did the Blizzard mentorship. So he actually did something really cool where he took the file itself, or the render image that I had, and then started painting over it. So you can see that version there. Make it look more painterly, because like one of the pieces of feedback that I got was he could tell it was a baked map. He could tell the things were baked down. So like specifically going in and adding more detail later, after you bake it down, and then sort of even removing the bake map. I kept the original bake map just because I thought it helped sell the thing a little bit better. And that's like where you build everything off of, so I couldn't really take it away. But I would recommend, even once you get your full texture done where you like it, and then you scale it down to 1024 by 1024, take that and then go over that too, your sort of final version. Then you have like a final pass. But there was add more color into shadows was another specific thing he recommended, because it's really dark under his neck right here. And Warcraft is one of those things where there aren't any like true blacks in the thing. So like there is no true black color. Like every shadow is lit up, and that's to help sell the sort of color in there. The only place there really would be is if there's like a hard line, so like right on his neck there was one. And even that's still like just a diffused color, or like a softer color. And then the color also helps sell, like specifically adding blood around like places where blood would show up, where it's thinner, specifically in like the cracks in his neck, other places like the jaw, specifically the eyes. Um, that's to help sell that it's more alive. So that was one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I got. Better defined shapes, like you can see there, he paints over the teeth and makes them pop more. I think that was partially due to the lighting, and also I could have made the color pop more on the teeth. So yeah, that was the most. And it seemed like he didn't really give any feedback on the specific extra stuff that I did. So I don't really know if that helped me or not. I'm going to say probably a little bit it did, but again, the main thing is the three main things they're looking for is, or maybe the two main things. I'll say silhouette, texturing, and apology and unwrap stuff. So make sure those three things are really good. And then you can focus on the other things if you have time. But those are the three main things: silhouette, texturing, and the topology of it. Making sure it's looks good, and is technically able to fit in Warcraft into their technical specifications. But as for public reception, I didn't win the actual Warcraft thing, but I won in the eyes of the people. So,
Gator people is new.
yeah, there were a lot of people. Pretty much all the comments I saw, I posted it to Reddit, to the Warcraft subreddit, and like everyone was loving it. I ended up getting, not that it really matters, but I got top 1% poster. That means my post was in the top 1% of the posts on World of Warcraft, the World of Warcraft subreddit. So that means a lot of people liked my design. And again, posting it to other places will get you more noticed. So posting it to like other social medias will get it more noticed. But yeah, the fans really liked it. Pretty much all the positive feedback I saw. There was a couple positive pieces of feedback for the environments and the VFX and some of the animations, but most of the positive feedback were specifically my design. And that made me feel really good. So again, even though I didn't win, I still got a lot of super awesome positive feedback that kind of makes me know that I chose the right path in being a character artist. My designs resonate with a lot of people, and it kind of gave me a little boost in like, yeah, this is the right thing I'm doing. And also, even though I didn't win, I still get bragging rights. So, yeah, that's pretty much it from here. Any questions? Yes, Nick.
I got two. So, I'm a firm believer in tracking your time with Toggle. Even though, like, I know you're busy with, other classes and everything else. I'm just curious, like, how long do you think this whole project probably took you?
I can tell you an exact answer because I did track it on Toggle. Let me find it real quick. I think overall the character itself took like 160 hours. But I can find specific answers for how long it took for each aspect of the project. Let me just push it back to, I'll just say end of October to now, sure. 180 hours on the total project. I spent most of that time in January, 105 hours in January. That was pretty much my crunch period. That was spent mostly doing retopology, baking, texturing, and the rigging. But most of my time was spent, let me break it down. Most of my time was spent on the high poly, about 60 hours on the high poly. A lot of that was the detailing, which didn't end up going into that. So again, it would probably save me like 10, 15 hours just not doing so much of that detailing. How much did a lot of it is the soup pot stuff of me figuring out, so like the texturing, 10 hours of just kind of, figuring out how to do it. The actual bargain himself took me 21 hours. The unwrap took me like 8 hours just because I wanted to make sure that was super optimized and whatnot, and even I could go back and do better. But again, I think it was really good for, especially the fact that I'd never really done anything like that before. Yeah.
Wow. No, it's crazy. was you got a Blizzard mentorship, or is it just like a little session? It's not like a 3-month.
No, it's nothing. It's nothing huge. If I go back to the very beginning, you can see here. It's a 1-hour virtual mentorship with a senior Blizzard artist, and I think the thing is you're really more going for, again, the recognition is most importantly, and the fact that you can say you've placed in a competition. You're like, hey, I did this. I can match this art style. I can do what you ask of me. But yeah, it was a 1-hour session with his name was Kelvin Tan. He's a senior character artist. It was just virtual, so I didn't actually get to meet him in person. They used to have, you used to be able to go to their studio in person and talk with. You go to a 2-hour session, but with the way, the economy is and the game industry is right now, they sort of cut back on stuff. But I would still recommend doing it, especially because of the state the industry is in right now. Getting eyes on your work is one of the most important things, and this is a really good way to do it. So, yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay. Well, I'm gonna have this up in case anyone wants it. I'm just gonna have this sit for a minute. If you want to reach out to me personally, I am very happy to answer any questions if you plan to do this or you just want feedback on your personal work too. Also, Brian would definitely be willing to help. He helped me a lot, so thank you, Brian. Yeah. Also, ask the other professors again. I mentioned the help stuff. So yeah, and if you want access to the slides, there's a QR code. I see no one scanning it. That's okay. But yeah, I'll have it. You can reach out again to me personally if you want. But yeah, that's about it. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. Thank you.